Okay, so I'm just gonna go over it first so you can see it in case you can't bring it up. But we're doing chapter 7 from the textbook. So we've kind of already done 7.1 and 7.2 because that is the introduction to two-dimensional shapes. Starting with 7.3 is gonna be the composite shapes, which is what we were going to work on, but I'm just gonna use this as a review first. And then the last one, 7.4, is the 3D shapes. So if you remember, this textbook has typically 4 sections in every chapter. So this chapter 7 is the geometry section. So because we've already done 7.1 and 7.2, we're just starting with the task exercise book to see if you can answer the questions. For 7.3 and 7.4, if you want, I can also scan the actual textbook so that you can read along with it and we can do some of those exercises as well as the Aztec and Khan Academy. So the first page is what we're going to try to do today. Well, let me not say try. This is what we're going to work on today. So as you can see, it says 7.1 up at the top, and that you're looking for perimeter and area of polygons. So poly is just more than one. So that's why all of the shapes with lines are in this section. So it starts off with rectangles, and rectangles are going to be all the way to question number 9. Then you can see, starting with question number 10, it starts with triangles. So we're going to review that formula. And that is all the way to number 7.
July 11th, 20.
And then, starting with number 18, is the parallelograms and trapezoids. And then that's going to go to number 25. So our goal today is just to review the rectangles and make sure that we know that formula coming from, this perspective. So some of them are multiple choice, and then some like this are still the answer that you're putting onto the grid. So we're going to start out with question number 1. And I'm going to give you a couple of minutes. So now let me actually stop sharing for a second. Let me ask you this question first. So I realized that on Zoom, we're able to separate into different groups. So this is your choice. If you would like to work something out, we're gonna try this, like just work something out with 1 or 2 people. This class isn't so big today so far. What is it? 5, 6, 7 people. So we might be able to work together, but sometimes we have like 10 people. And so there is a possibility that you can stay on Zoom, but go into a smaller Zoom room for a couple of minutes, right? And just be able to talk to 2 people instead of hearing, everybody talking at the same time. So I'm trying to figure out a way for us to be more interactive. And I think, I'll see, as soon as I said that there's like 7 people, luckily, everyone's coming now. So we're up to like 9 people that quickly, right? So we're gonna maybe do like the first 3 together, and then I'm going to see if you can separate, just to get a chance to talk it out, or especially if we have a question about one, okay? So that you can have more time to work with each other as well. So I'm gonna flip back to do number 1. I'm just gonna give you a couple of minutes. So we're gonna read it together. I'll give you like, 2 minutes. See if you have an approach to the problem and if you have the right answer, and then we'll go from there. So let me go back. So question number 1 says, your driveway, and hopefully everybody can see this one. Let's see. I know some people, we did the survey last week, some people are working from your cell phone. This one says your driveway is 35 feet long and 24 feet wide. Blacktop sealer costs $18.50 per tub, and it covers 420 square feet. Which of these will be the cost to seal your driveway with 2 coats of sealer? So now take a minute to work that problem out, and don't forget that when you're doing geometry or anything really in math, you can still draw it out. So you have something tangible to look at if that's necessary for you. So you already know This section is about rectangles because the task exercise book is telling you that. But if you didn't know and you're hearing the 35 feet long and 24 feet wide, that's when you want to imagine a rectangle and you might want to draw it out for yourself. So there's a lot of information here in these, what, 1, 2, 3 little sentences. So does anybody feel like they have the answer already?
I don't hear you.
Does anybody feel like they have the answer?
I don't hear you.
I can hear you, Josette.
Me too, me neither.
I don't know what to say. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
All I'm gonna say is maybe like turn, okay, I see you. Try to turn up your volume in case your volume is down, because I can hear your voice, which means you're connected with the audio. So who thinks they have the answer to number 1?
B.
That would be the half answer. But that means you're on the right track. Anybody else think they have the answer? So
Is it A? It's the 18.5?
Nope, so then this is the perfect one to try out the whiteboard. So what I'm gonna do is, now this might be a little bit sloppy because I can't find my pen for my laptop. So I'm gonna be drawing with my finger, but let me just,
Wait, let me try it again. I think I'm going to.
okay. So can you see a white screen?
Yes.
Okay, so the problem says that your driveway is 35 feet long and 24 feet wide. So even if you're not thinking of the rectangle, you do want to say 35 times 24. So you're trying to figure out how big is the rectangle driveway. So is this an area question or perimeter question?
Area.
Area, right? So the total that you have to cover is 840 square feet because you're multiplying. You're not thinking of just doing like a gate or a fence or a trim, a border. You're really talking about the whole area. So now what you know is, you know that the driveway is 840 square feet. And then it's saying that the blacktop sealer costs $18.50 per tub. But what you have to figure out is how many tubs do you need to cover 840 square feet? And I think that might be why someone said B. But what is in the last question, the part that you really have to focus on, one coat. So one coat is going to be the $37. So what it's saying in the last sentence, which is the question, which of these will be the cost to seal your driveway with 2 coats of sealer? So what you have to think of is $18.50 is going to do 420 square feet. But you already know, because of this, that you have to do 2 $18.50 to cover 840 square feet. So just doing that is going to take the $37, but the question is asking you about 2 coats. So once you figure out that the one coat is going to cost $37, 2 coats is going to be doubling that to $74. So the answer is actually going to be D. So let me go back to the page. So like this is one where you're doing multiple things, right? Because the answers that could be there are A, that you're just gonna buy 1 tub, B, that you're gonna buy 2 tubs, and then D, that you're gonna cover the driveway twice. So that's really gonna be that you have to buy 4. Any questions about that one?
I got it.
So now let me tell you what you can do, right? Because we're working with the textbook for the first time. You can type something into the chat if you have a question. You can also, let's see. Just say you have the question. Sometimes I'm not looking at you like when the paper is up, so then I cannot see, of course, if you're raising your hand or something like that. But you can just say, I don't understand that one, or can you repeat that, or anything like that. So if you got B, then you did the right math. This is just the idea that you're also still going to have to do the reading of the question that says you want 2 coats of sealer. So if you got $37, then you did double the 1850 to get up to 840 square feet. But then this is how multiple choice can be a little bit of a trick, a little bit of a challenge, because if you're just multiplying and you're like, you see the number in the list, you might want to pick it right away. So this is why we're saying, especially with the word problem style, you always want to really read the question twice. So you're reading the question to understand what you're looking for, but then you're reading the question to make sure your answer actually answers the real question that they're asking you. Okay. So now let's take a look at number 2, which is much more straightforward. So number 2 just says, consider this rectangle. So this is more like one that, you know, has measurements off to the side. It says, what is the area in square meters of the rectangle? So now this one, you do not need any calculator, right? You just have to remember what we were doing with decimals. So and you have to remember the formula, of course, which I think you already know because you were doing number 1. So this one is telling you to do area. Area is length times width. And these numbers are 3 times 5. So even though it has a decimal, you can do this in your head because you already know the multiplication table. So what is 3 times 5?
15.
15, right? And you are going to have a decimal in front of the 15. So your answer is going to be, we said we're doing a decimal point, then a 1, and then a 5. So if you do get a grid like this, every single thing, every character has to go in its own box. And then you have to fill in or click, because you're not going to be using pencil and paper, but you're going to click a decimal point, a 1, and then a 5, just to show that you know how to do a grid form. So that one was pretty easy, right?
Yes, yes.
I don't hear any yeses.
Yes, yes. So into it.
So now let's take a look at question number 3. Which would be the most appropriate unit of measurement for a painter estimating the surface area of a wall? So A says cubic feet, B says square feet, C says cubic inches, and D says square inches. So what would be the best choice?
That'd be D, square inches.
Nope, but that's close. You definitely want to pick out of the squares, right? So when this kind of question is really making sure that you know the difference between two-dimensional and three-dimensional, which we haven't even gotten yet, but cubic would be three-dimensional. So you want to stick with square feet or square inches, but what they're saying is because it's a wall, you're probably better likely, just saying feet.
Right. Okay.
So if you were doing something small, maybe like tiling a table, then you might want to say how many square inches of tile do you need. But for painting, you're more likely going to talk about the floor and the wall in square feet. Now, this kind of question could also be like about your neighborhood or your city. Then you would be talking about square miles. So what they're really just saying is that you can pick out the best unit for the job. And here they're saying painter and a wall. So you're back to area because someone's going to be painting the surface, and you're talking about something that's normally bigger than you. So you would give it with feet and inches like you kind of do yourself. Most people, especially in the United States, I know when I was living in Brazil, we did say kilograms and what's the other one? Centimeters. So we did not say, I didn't say I'm 5'10". Everyone knew their number in centimeters. So here in the United States, most people are going to use feet and then inches to say their height. And because the wall is bigger than you, you would do the same thing, talk about feet. So this is another one where you don't need to do any math. You're really just focused on the definition of the word. This could be one of the ones that is considered an easier question or the introductory level. Like how we said your test is going to go back and forth between 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade. So let's take a look at number 4. East Bridge High School is 80 feet long and 52 feet wide. How many times must a student run around the school in order to have run a mile? So now they're telling you in the parentheses that a mile is 5,280 feet. So first you have to figure out how many feet are they going to travel by running around the high school. So how are you going to figure that out? Is this an area question or perimeter question?
Perimeter.
Area question.
This is perimeter, right? Because they're talking about running around the school, which is a border, trim, track, anything like that is a perimeter question. Excuse me. So what you have to figure out is they gave you how many feet long and how many feet wide. What would be the total perimeter of the school, of running around the school?
So that'll be adding all the sides, like
Yeah.
80 plus 52 times 2.
Yes.
All right, so the answer is G, right?
Yeah, the answer is G. But the first part is figuring out what the distance is to run around one time. So you are doing the 80 and 52 times 2, or you can say 80 plus 80, 52 plus 52. What you're doing is you're completing the rectangle. So let's see. So that's up to you. If you say that, one side is 80, you're definitely going to multiply that. Plus, you need 2 of the 52. So what you're trying to do is say one is 80 and one is 52. They only gave you 2 sides. So you have to copy the other 2 and understand that you're still talking about a rectangle. So the total, oops, I gotta I have to find my pen. The total is 264. So now what you want to say to yourself is, let me divide the 5,280 by the one time around. And then you will get G. So any questions about that one?
Yeah.
So what's your question, Josette?
I don't understand very well. So where you find 50 to 80?
So that is just in the first sentence. So let me pull that back up.
Please.
And after, we're just doing this today, right? Because it's Monday. You can write these down in your notebook for tomorrow, or if you can print them, you can do that. Or if you're a person who has more than one device, like you want to look at it from your cell phone while you're on your tablet, you can also do that. So this is a little bit challenging because we're going back and forth, and you might not be able to see it because I just loaded it in for class today. But what you want to do is, this is on the Google Classroom already. So it depends on how you want to look at it. So the first choice is pull it up on your screen and then just copy it down into your notebook. Another choice is if you have a printer and still have paper and ink, if you haven't run out, you could print it, or you can just look at it on two devices. But if you're looking at number 4, the first sentence says East Bridge High School is 80 feet long and 52 feet wide. So this is where you're getting the 80 and the 52.
Okay.
Then the second sentence, how many times must a student run around the school in order to have run a mile? This really has two parts in one sentence. So the first thing is, how many times must a student run around the school? When you read run around the school, that is perimeter. So that's when you say it's going to be 80 plus 80 plus 52 plus 52, because I'm running around the school. So that was
80 plus 80 plus 52.
Yes.
Okay.
So this is me drawing this out right here. Here's the school. They only told you the 80 and the 52. So you have to complete the rest of the rectangle by putting 80 at the, parallel side and 52 at the parallel side. So you could have drawn yours the other way, like the 52 on top and then the 80. So it doesn't matter which way you draw it, but what you want to do is say, if I know one direction and then I know the other direction, I'm copying that to the parallel sides. And for perimeter, I'm going to add up all of the sides.
Okay.
So adding up all of the sides is how we got the 264.
All right.
So this is, that's you. Or a student. You have to imagine running around the whole school and then saying, I need to run around enough times to get up to a mile.
Okay.
So this one, it didn't have like 264, but you have to have that number first and then say to yourself, that's one lap. I should divide that into the total amount of miles I want to run. So when they tell you that it's 5,280 feet to a mile, you're trying to get up to 5,280 feet.
Okay.
So if ever you know where you want to go and you know 1, that's division. So even if somebody's like, I'm going to buy 5 pounds of grapes, how many can I get for $1? You're dividing 5 divided by 1. If somebody says, I bought a dozen donuts and it costs $3, How much was 1? You're now going to say $3 divided by 12. So anytime you know the whole total and then you're comparing it to just one unit, that's division.
Okay.
So that's what you have to pull out, because, and this is why we're using the textbook like this, because a lot of these questions, like we said, in order to count for 2, 3, 4 years of high school, the one question that just said, what is the area of this rectangle? It's 0.3, 0.5. That's an easier question because that's just one step. But this kind of a question that says you're running around the school, you have to know that that's perimeter. And then how many times do you have to do it to go to a mile? You have to do another step.
Okay.
So these are the questions that are 2-step, 3-step that are worth more thinking. You know, it's not just, let me just do the formula real quick. It's let me really apply a couple of layers of information.
All right.
So that's what I'm going to say. This is our, you know, the end of the introduction, but what I put in for Google Classroom is to just do rectangles. So we left off at number 5, which would mean 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So the whole PDF is up there, but we're only aiming to finish rectangle. And the goal is going to kind of be like, if we can do rectangle tomorrow and finish, then the assignment for Wednesday will be to do the triangles. And then if we can do the triangles, the assignment for Thursday, Friday would be the parallelograms and trapezoids. So we've already done all of these formulas. And I know you did it on Khan Academy, and probably if you probably finished Aztec by now for that one section. That means you've seen all of the formulas. So now this is just, can you read the problem and also do some of the other things, like maybe if it's division, multiplication, or like we said, just answering the question about what is the best unit of measure. So those types of just reading questions when it comes to geometry. So these are, instead of doing the online quiz, we're just going to do this on paper, but bring it for tomorrow.
Okay.
And then if you have a problem, you know, hopefully the scan, it looks like it came out okay. But if you have any problems or have any questions about it, you can just send me a text on Remind.
Okay.
And then if you need to work on something, we can always, like we said before, do a separate Zoom, like a separate little mini tutoring session or something like that.
Okay.
And we'll try out separating into the different groups to work out a problem, you know, with 2 people or 3 people.
Okay.
And then what you want to do is what we just did, right? So you want to say, let me read the whole thing. Let me read the question. And then what do I really need to answer this question? So sometimes talking that out helps, or listening to somebody else talk it out helps, because this is what you have to duplicate for yourself or replicate for yourself. When you go to take the test, you really want to be having a conversation with yourself. You know, you want to say, okay, what do I need to do right now? All questions help you focus. So the answer sometimes is going to be obvious, like the 0.3 times 0.5. But then sometimes you are going to have to think. And when you're coming from something and you're going to a testing center, and even now, right? You said you're going to take the test maybe in June. We've been sitting home for a month, right? You need to be able to engage with your own self while you're doing the test.
Yeah.
So even when you're like, so that's why the first question I always have is, do you have a question? But then my question is, what is your actual question? Because sometimes even when you don't understand, you can just be like, I just don't understand. But
Exactly.
even for you to make a question gives your own self focus. Like, even if you're like, I don't understand what shape I'm looking at or what shape I'm reading, right? You have to always have a place to start. Because like we were saying last week, this is like a domino effect. Learning is like one trigger to one trigger to one trigger to one trigger. And if you don't knock over the first trigger or the first domino, there's nothing to connect. So when you're working, you have to do that for yourself as practice. Even if you're saying, what should I do first? What shape is this? What formula do I need? You know, whatever it is that you're doing that's going to guide you to breaking down the question and getting the things that you need for the question. So like if you remember the first one we did, the real question was, how much do you need for 2 coats? If you skip over the word 2, or you're not imagining that 2 coats of paint, 2 coats of sealer, you know, 2 coats of nail polish, whatever it is not just the one time. You have to imagine that as you're reading. Otherwise, another answer is there that seems like it's correct, right? If it's not just for that one word of doing 2 coats. And this is what's going to happen that they're trying to say is real life. If you have to paint your room with 2 coats of paint, or do your driveway with 2 coats of sealer or cement or anything like that, you have to go to Home Depot with the right total in your mind.
Mhm. Yeah.
So if you aim to get to number 9, if you skip over one, that's no problem. You're going to do it the same way we were doing it before. I'm saying you got 5 questions to do. So perhaps that's another like 15 minutes, like we were doing the quiz. So if you're taking longer than that, you want to just write a question down instead, okay? So I'm saying this is about 15, 20 minutes worth of work because we did rectangle a while ago. If you don't know it and you say, I've been working on this for 3 to 5 minutes and I don't have an answer, you're just going to write down a question instead and skip that one and go on to the next one. So the goal is still to read them all, get all the way through to number 9. If you know how to do it and it seems really easy, you can start taking a look at triangle if you want. But officially, we're going to go over the answers in tomorrow's class and then probably do like 1 or 2 of the triangle and then do the same thing. Just finish the triangle for homework and then move on to the next shape.
Okay.
So happy to see everybody coming back for another, what is this, week 5? You're hanging in there. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So I will see you tomorrow. And don't forget, you can send me a question, but just try to come to class tomorrow. Questions for anyone that you skipped and your notes or whatever you worked out, your scrap paper. And I will try to look for my pen to make our notes a little cleaner. And I hope you have a great day.
Okay,
you.
you
You too.
Have a good one.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Have a great afternoon.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.